Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's episode of Trending. I'm back with my brother.
Yeah, mate. We thought we'd had all our technical problems fixed, but we don't. So that's going to have a single camera today. So you get to see us both for the whole time, which some will like. Most won't.
Most won't, no. Trending, as always, is brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING and you get 10% off. You can kick off the stories then.
Yeah, so Brexit Betrayal. It feels like
Shock.
Basically since 29th of June 2016 when this Brexit vote was it 16th of June?
I don't know, I thought you'd done really well and
I thought it was
memorised the date then.
I think it was 29th of June. I'm going to stick with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I've definitely had a 9 in it. So anyway, since then, there's basically the establishment has done everything it can to stop that democratic vote, which I've said before, I believe was definitely bigger than 52-48. I believe it was probably a much bigger percentage of the country that voted out.
Yeah.
And essentially, we've had a very watered down Brexit. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not what people voted for. And there was so much debacle over what people have actually voted for, which, you know, everyone voted for no deal because there wasn't a deal on the table. So that whole no one voted for this was complete sham. Yeah. People voted for essentially taking back control of the borders, taking back control of decisions being made that affect England and Wales and Scotland being made in this, you know, in London, which is bad, but at least it's there. Whereas the EU, as anyone that's looked into it will know, is incredibly undemocratic. And the Parliament at the EU actually has no voting power whatsoever. They vote, but it doesn't mean anything. It's unelected officials. So that's really what people voted for. And one of the big things people were talking about during it were, as I said, freedom of movement and also the fishing rights to territorial waters in the UK, which Gareth, you covered at the back end of last week. Yep. So today we're going to focus on immigration because this is an issue which was the key topic of the last election, wasn't it? On all sides, every single party, including the Tories, who've lost control of it, were essentially quite scared. You know, if you're looking at it on the surface level, essentially scared about the rise of reform and therefore this kind of take back control of the borders rhetoric, and they all paid lip service to it, and it was really the election about immigration, wasn't it?
Well, it's the reason we got Brexit was because they were terrified of UKIP and Nigel Farage then.
Well, yeah, it was the lead up to the 2015 election, wasn't it? When then Prime Minister David Cameron said if the Tories win, they'll do a referendum on EU membership. Yeah. Not thinking, you know, maybe they're playing 5D chess, I don't know. But on the surface, never thinking that they were going to lose that. And they did. And it was the end of his career and George Osborne's as well, the then Chancellor, which was quite amusing to watch. However, Keir Starmer and Labour have always been very, very clear they want to be in the EU. They don't want to leave the EU. They never did, even when, you know, the likes of Jeremy Corbyn were leader of the Labour Party, and politically, him and Starmer are supposedly at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to, they were very much on the same page when it came to this. Yeah. And, you know, certain parties like the Liberal Democrats, the Greens during the last election were openly saying we need to rejoin the EU. Labour didn't quite go that far. They talked about resetting relations with the EU.
Well, Starmer did before Starmer became leader, when Corbyn was stabbed in the back completely. He was supporting a second referendum.
He was, yeah.
He was supporting another vote, yeah.
They all were, to be fair. Everyone on that side.
If you don't vote the right way the first time, have another go.
Well, yeah, that's the EU modus operandi, isn't it?
It certainly is.
So last night, on the eve of a summit between the EU and the UK, Keir Starmer warned that. People have warned that Starmer will betray Brexit. Now, as we said, the Brexit we have is not really Brexit. It's not really what people voted for, but it's better than nothing. And today he's set to sign an agreement which basically undermines and goes back against any of the good things that came from that agreement. And one of which is freedom of movement. Now, as always, they haven't just called it that. They haven't said, we're opening the borders again, freedom of movement within the EU. They've obviously come up with a swanky new term to try and make you think, what's that? And knowing most people won't actually look into it. So what they're calling this scheme is a young person's migration scheme, basically. And what that means...
That sounds better than mass unfiltered immigration.
It does. It's easier to sell. What that essentially means is that a young person, which isn't actually defined what that means. Does that mean under 25? Does that mean under 30? Does that mean a student? Isn't actually defined. Can come and spend up to 2 years here. And again, that is not defined by the initial story here of, does that mean they can come here for 2 years and work, to study, to live? What happens if they come here in those 2 years, meet someone, settle a family? Can they stay? There's no real context to it. It's very much up in the air. So as a result, everyone is speculating at the moment, and opposition people like Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, and Farage, leader of Reform, have come out and called out the deal. Really, to me, this just is this a? Do you think this could be a we've not released the details. We've put out a few feelers to garner public reaction of what we can get away with, and then we'll go with that. Or do you think there's something more to that? I don't know, really.
I think Starmer's a liar. So when Starmer,
no one can argue with that.
So when Starmer came out recently saying, he suddenly changed his rhetoric on immigration and is suddenly, talking about cutting immigration, sending people home and all this kind of stuff, that he means the opposite.
Yep.
Because I find, and I thought this even before Starmer became leader of what was then the opposition, Labour. If you take what he says and then just flip it on its head, you're going to be closer to what he's actually saying.
Yeah, that's generally what happens.
Yeah, whatever he says, he means the opposite. So this is no surprise to me whatsoever. When people voted to leave the EU, they voted the wrong way. Simple as that. I don't think for 1 minute the establishment thought that the people of Britain would actually go through and vote leave.
No, I mean, I like to think that. But then part of me also thinks, is there more at play here? Because what it's allowed the Westminster establishment to do is blame Brexit for all the chaos, all the things that are not great, the reason price is going up. Obviously now they're blaming Putin, they're blaming other things as well. But before that, Brexit was blamed for everything. Do you not remember? Even if you phoned up like your bank to make an inquiry over something, sorry, we're short-staffed because of Brexit. You went to buy a car or you went to do something like that and it's 10% more expensive. It's because of Brexit. Everything was because of Brexit.
Well, they find something.
You can't go through the e-gates when you go on holiday now. It's because of Brexit.
Well, then it became COVID, wasn't it? Because COVID.
Well, yeah.
Can't do this because of COVID.
Exactly.
And now it's very often, it's climate change.
Yeah.
It's raining. It's climate change. It's ever so dry, isn't it? Yeah, it's climate change. It's interesting you mentioned the e-gates, though, because I wrote an article for Iconic last week where I was talking about how they basically use convenience to sell you a big pile of shite. And people take it because it's convenient to take it in the short term without thinking about what that means for the long term. For instance, the ID for people to go into pubs, basically having a digital ID. Well, that'd be easier than just getting my ID out of my wallet. Yeah, that's hard doing that, isn't it? They sell it in that way. Now, with these e-gates, they're talking as part of this deal
about bringing it back, aren't they?
That you will be able to use your British passport at the EU gates, at airports and stuff like that. I don't know how many people care too much about that, but they're going to use that as a selling point. Again, it's more convenient. Oh yeah, well, go for the deal then. Yeah, but what about all the other bits? Don't worry about the fishing rights.
No.
Don't worry about the fact that you've got Spanish trawlers off the coast of Hull nicking all your fish. Don't worry about that. You can use the EU gate at the airport.
Well, yeah, it's convenience. Like I said, and for context, I went to Amsterdam a few weeks ago for the Persona non grata premiere, and you didn't go through the EU gates. You had to queue, and it was, you were there for 15, 20 minutes versus walking straight through. But for me, that's a price to pay for keeping control of your freedom, which is very, very, pivotal to any kind of future. And like you say, convenience, they sell you your dream, that this will make your life easier, you'll get this time back. Contactless payments a big one, isn't it? That's another one, because that's so difficult just doing a few numbers.
It's very difficult.
And as a result, you get complacent, you get more used to technology being involved in every aspect of your life. You can't cope without it. And bit by bit, freedom erodes.
Yeah. And another thing, I think, because you've just mentioned, is there something more at play? The answer is yes, because there always is. And we've spoken before about the fact that at the end of the day, if I want to go from position A to position B, if I take a big leap on one particular side, whether that be my right leg, I could pull a groin, but my left leg, people start to notice that.
Yep.
So I take a step with my right foot, and then people start to go, well, hang on a minute, I'm not sure I like this direction. Okay, we'll bring the left foot in then. And the left foot is going in the same direction because they're all going to the same end. So then at that point, the people get the ump and they go, no, I don't like where this is going. Have you ever thought about using the right foot? Yeah, I'll vote for the right foot then. And then the right foot comes forward. So I wonder if part of this, because let's have it right, Labour's unelectable at the minute. I mean, that was evidenced in the council elections. I mean, they took an absolute shoo-in. So I wonder then if this Brexit betrayal and this kind of, again, this evidence of more Starmer lying when he's talking about fighting back against unfiltered immigration, is going to push more people towards reform.
Probably. I don't see how they ever win another election with him in charge.
No, I don't either.
So I don't think this is about 2-term, 3-term, 4-term government. I think this is as much as they can get in 5 years.
Yeah.
Or being ousted before that, and then they sail into the sunset. So I think, as we've spoke about before, with Trump coming into leadership, the same, obviously now with this Labour government, who appear on the surface to be at opposite ends of the spectrum politically, it's about getting as much over the line. So things are going to happen quickly. Hence why they have. They've not even been in power a year yet.
Yeah, they've done a shed load. And the other thing is as well, it's if you can con people into thinking they're winning,
they
will let you get away with murder. And that's exactly what's happened in America with Trump. Everyone was so busy celebrating, literally and metaphorically, that they've allowed him to get away with stuff that they would never have let Harris get away with.
100%.
And so I wonder if they are pushing people to reform. So there's street parties. Yes, at last we've got rid of the uni party. We've got a new. Oh, they're doing exactly the same thing. Yeah, they are.
Well,
that's what politics is, mate.
The reaction was the same when Labour got in. I remember I was on holiday in Italy when they won, and seeing a post about 2 days into their new government going, I feel so good. The grown-ups are finally in charge.
Yeah, best of luck with that.
Wow, yeah, best of luck.
Okay, moving on then.
To not a grown-up.
We're staying in Britain. Gary Lineker is a former footballer, played for England, Barcelona, Tottenham, Everton, Leicester City. I think that's his entire career. I've got no skin in the game when it comes to Lineker. I'm not a fan at all. But that doesn't mean I can't speak up for something when I think something happening that's unjust. Gary Lineker to leave BBC next week and will no longer host World Cup coverage in 2026. Gary Lineker is set to leave the BBC after this season's final match of the day and will no longer present its coverage of the World Cup, Sky News understands. It comes after he apologised unreservedly. That's his first mistake.
Never apologise.
Never apologise, mate. They'll have you for breakfast.
Especially if you're saying something you actually believe in.
Exactly. For sharing a social media post featuring a rat used in propaganda by Nazi Germany to dehumanise Jewish people, and said he would never knowingly share anything anti-Semitic. Lineker, 64. Goodness me, how's he 64? That makes me feel old. Said he was unaware the post he shared was anti-Semitic and it went against everything I believe in. In response to the presenter resharing the post, the campaign against anti-Semitism.
Oh, they're back.
Oh, we love those guys. Said his continued association with the BBC is untenable. Now, what I found amusing about this, for people at home, for context, basically someone had made a post, I think it was an Instagram post, and it was a video of a Palestinian lawyer. Now, what she says in it is very, very powerful, which is why they want you to focus on the rat. So it said, like, Zionism explained in 2 minutes or something, and there was a rat emoji, which apparently is anti-Semitic, because what isn't? But they want you focused on that rather than, obviously, the content of the video, because it's quite damning and it's quite powerful. What I find interesting about it, Jay, is that Lineker has stirred so many people up the wrong way for so many years. He speaks about whatever he wants. He calls out whoever, we spoke about Brexit. He attacked people that voted for Brexit. He attacked people that called out the COVID restrictions as COVID idiots and all that sort of stuff. He's been able to say what on earth he wanted for the entirety of his career, when actually working for the BBC, you're supposed to be impartial.
You are.
They've always backed him. They've always protected him. Not a problem. And then he called out the end-of-level boss. And you can't do that. And so, obviously, he's finished now.
He's gone, yeah.
He's learning that you can call out pretty much everyone. Pretty much everyone, but not quite everyone. He also doesn't mention Jews in the post.
No.
He's talking about Zionists. Now, not all Jewish people are Zionists, and not all Zionists are Jewish. So that whole thing, that connection...
doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. But it's another example of the fact that you can't call out Israel. You can't, because they will link it to Jewish people straight away.
Yeah, it's a very bad career move.
It's a very bad career move. And what's funny about it is actually when you look at the definitions, the new updated definitions of anti-Semitism, it's actually anti-Semitic to connect Jewish people with the actions of the state of Israel. However, if you call out Israel, then that means you're calling out Jewish people. So then, in turn, that's sort of anti-Semitic by their own definition. That's the whole joke of it.
They tie themselves up in knots.
Yeah, they do. And, I've spoke about it for probably months now, where I think what's happening in Gaza is obviously horrendous. It is a genocide. As much as people like to deny it, it is. Now they're starving them to death. But I think what's coming is potentially going to be worse.
Yeah, it is.
when you talk about, Iran and the rest of it and the explosion. And I think so what they're trying to do is shut people up in advance. Now, I'm not a fan of Lineker, but he is, a national treasure. He's the highest paid presenter at the BBC. He's been untouchable for years. If you can bring him down in a matter of days, what does that say to any other presenter or any other celebrity that is thinking about speaking out? It's going to make them. You look at Kneecap, the Irish band, and what's happened to them. You look at Greta Thunberg.
Yep.
Greta Thunberg was a darling when she was pushing the climate change con. Then she had the gall to call out Israel, and suddenly she was an anti-Semite because she had a squishy toy behind her that was an octopus. Apparently that's a trope. It's hard to keep up. What you find with trope, though, I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same as dog whistle. It's a way of accusing you of saying something you haven't actually said by using that term.
Yep.
So say he said something anti-Semitic. Well, what did he say that was anti-Semitic? It was a dog whistle. What does that mean? Well, it means what I think he meant was. What? That's not what he said, though. It's the same as this. Oh, it's an anti-Semitic trope. Everyone knows that. Do they?
Yeah.
Now, just and the other thing as well is Israel killed 66 civilians yesterday. We're not talking about that, though. We're not talking about the murder of innocent people. We're talking about Gary Lineker's Instagram. This story, just to make the point that I'm trying to make, in the fact that if you call out the end-of-level boss, you're in trouble. British ICC chief prosecutor, so this is the International Criminal Court, obviously that have put out arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and for Yoav Gallant for war crimes, of which, of course, they're absolutely guilty and have been long before now.
And the leaders of Hamas, I believe, as well.
And the leaders of Hamas as well.
Both sides.
Both sides. But don't talk about that. Don't talk about that bit. British ICC chief prosecutor lost access to email and has had his bank accounts frozen after Trump sanctions on top court. Because obviously Trump isn't owned by Israel. That's an anti-Semitic trope. Trump imposed strict sanctions on the ICC, the highest criminal court in the world, after a panel of judges issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in November. Judges found there was reason to believe, quite a lot of reason to believe, that the pair may have committed war crimes by restricting humanitarian aid and intentionally targeting civilians in Israel's campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Charges Israeli officials deny. Well, of course they do, because they went to school with Keir Starmer at the University of Lying.
Yeah.
Since Trump's sanctions, the court staff, including top judges, have suffered severe restrictions on their work and personal lives. Of course they have. You can't call out the end-of-level boss, mate. Everyone knows that. I will, again, it's more evidence of the fact that if you call out Israel, they will try and destroy you. But I'm going to take this as a little bit of balance. So they're investigating Netanyahu, right, for war crimes. They put out an arrest warrant. Now they've lost their email, so that's Microsoft who have done that, and their bank access.
Yep. Gary
Lineker has hit repost on something that you probably didn't notice the rat. If you look at it, it's the tiniest thing. I was like that looking at it, going, oh, there is a rat there. And they're finished. He's finished. Career's finished. Now, this is a direct quote from Israel's Channel 5 News. Now, Channel 5 News is the most watched, well, Channel 12 is the most watched channel in Israel. And this is what a journalist said. This was a couple of days ago. Direct quote, "People in Gaza deserve death, a hard, agonizing death. There are no innocent people there." What, all the toddlers? No? Okay. "We should have seen a lot more revenge, a lot more rivers of Gazans' blood."
Normal.
Totally normal behaviour, totally normal thing to say on national television. You'd probably get a pay rise.
I don't really know where to go with that, because that bloke's probably got kids and a wife at home himself.
Lunatics.
Absolute lunatics running the asylum. If somebody said that on the street here and described, say, some Muslims in the corner of a city here in the UK, they'd be arrested. They'd be arrested for inciting hatred, inciting violence, for being a danger to people. And that's on national television, and that's normal. And we're sold that this is the only secular democracy in the Middle East, and we need to, support Israel because they're surrounded by lots of adversaries. That's easy to say. And all of that, and people that just want to destroy the state, and Iran are the problem, and, the Lebanese are the problem, Hezbollah are the problem. All of those probably are problems. However, you're ignoring what is so obviously a terrorist regime. If any other country in the world was doing what they were doing, the boys would have been sent in decades ago. This has been going on, off and on, since 1948. And it's got to the point now where they are literally starving children to death.
Yeah.
A statistic I read this morning, which is nearly 100,000 kids, about 20,000 young women, are basically going to starve to death in the next 2 to 3 days if food doesn't come through.
Yeah,
because
that's what they want.
They are at the point of actually needing treatment for acute malnutrition.
Yeah.
If that's not a genocide, then what is?
Yeah, and you know, when future generations don't like Israel, it's because they hate their freedoms.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Not
because
sure
they
it
hate
is.
their freedoms.
Not
And
sure
also
it is.
to people in Israel that actually oppose what they're doing, they get treated and abused as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
Any Jewish person who dares to speak out against the actions of the Israeli state, they get attacked, they get targeted in exactly the same way Lineker has been.
They get called anti-Semites,
They get called
which is quite funny.
Self-haters is the best one.
You hate yourself. And there's a lot of people protesting in Israel against Netanyahu, and they have been for a long time, because even without the genocide and the war crimes, the guy is corrupt. He's as bent as a 6-bob note.
Well, they've had an election pretty much every year, haven't they, for the last 5 or 6 years previous to this story.
It's mad. And that quote, you know, people in Gaza deserve death. If you swap Gaza for the word Israel, people in Israel deserve death, and you have it as a quote from a Palestinian journalist rather than an Israeli journalist, you would not hear the end of it, mate.
No, you wouldn't. This is disgusting. I think I've run out of adjectives to describe what's going on there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah.
It's just
Beyond.
exactly beyond, you know. Right, this story seems quite small now compared to that, but we're going to focus back on the UK here. Spoke about a few weeks ago that the Chancellor Rachel Reeves had started targeting and was talking about targeting people's savings and their ability to save. We spoke about something called an ISA, which is a tax-free savings account that you have here in the UK. You have up to £20,000 that you can put in that in a year and not get taxed on any interest that you earn. Now, they're talking about taking that down to just £1,000, which is, well, literally that's insanity in terms of the drop. And it's also just insanity in general. But this is a story here about a different type of savings account, which is a non-ISA account, which people have been encouraged over the last few years to take, where essentially you stick your money into an account that you can't access for a fixed period of time, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But the interest rate that you earn is fixed. It's not susceptible to the Bank of England or international World Bank changing interest rates. So if you sign up, say 2 years, 4%, let's say you put £1,000 in at 4%, you know that's going to earn you 40 quid. You know that for a fact. You can't argue with that. So what people have been doing, young people have been doing, is putting money into them on the premise that it's going to earn them X amount, then when they can access it, using that for either house deposits, starting businesses, traveling, whatever it might be. Now, with those accounts, unlike many, the interest you get gets paid in one lump sum at the end. It doesn't get paid weekly or monthly like lots of accounts. Now, what HMRC, the Revenue and Customs, the tax authorities here in the UK, have started doing, or are starting to do, is now sending letters out to people saying, actually, we want a ton of interest on that lump sum. But two things. We want it before you've earned it.
Of course they do.
So we want it before you've actually been paid. So let's say, again, to take that simple concept, £1,000 in, you get 40 quid in interest, and let's say that tax rate, it varies depending what you put in the account, but let's say it's 10%. We want that 4 quid. We want that now. It's like, but you haven't got it yet.
No,
we want it now, though.
Zelensky needs a new tracksuit, though.
And the other thing with that is the whole concept that you're being penalised for saving money. When if nobody put any money into the bank, in theory, the banks would all go bust. The banks couldn't lend any money, so they'd lose their ability to fleece people, which is what they do. So encouraging people to save surely is positive to that. It doesn't make any sense. This story is just bizarre. But what it is, again, is it's them targeting your money. It's them targeting your ability to put money aside, to maybe squirrel money away, save it for a rainy day, to try and earn yourself some interest so that you can maybe retire slightly earlier. You can go and have that holiday. Because a lot of people, especially people with large sums of money, interest can be quite significant.
Yeah.
Can be very significant.
Yeah.
You know, 4% interest on £1 million is a ton of money. So it's just, again, it's discouraging people from trying to plan for the future.
Well, they don't want anyone to have anything.
No, they don't. We spoke, didn't we, in the past about them trying to end generational wealth, where the inheritance tax is a massive part of that, but where everybody starts from ground zero. And as we know, the ground zero today is significantly tougher than it would have been 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. It's much harder. If you're starting from nothing and your parents haven't given you any help, or you haven't been left a house or something that gives you an opportunity to get a leg up, it's very, very difficult to start. Very, very difficult. Hence why so many young people are staying at home for so much longer. They're never buying houses. They're really struggling. The rents are insane, like literally insane now.
House prices have gone up again.
They have. It's
over
just
the weekend, yeah.
And we're at a point where interest rates and the ability to get loans is just, they're making it harder and harder. That it's clear they're creating more and more dependency, and this all ties into that whole universal basic income agenda where people are reliant on the state just to survive. Not reliant on the state because, they've fallen on hard times, but that's just the norm. That's the status quo. You are reliant on the state for your daily room and board, essentially.
Well, savings give you freedom. I mean, if you look at it and apply it to a previous story, take Gary Lineker, for instance, right? Gary Lineker is an incredibly wealthy man. He's made a lot of money from football and then from selling crisps and presenting television shows. So him being destroyed for stepping out of line, but anyway, it doesn't just have to be about Israel. You can step out of line on anything. We all stepped out of line during Rona. Do you know what I mean? And people lost their careers and all sorts. He can go, oh, okay, well, that's rubbish. I quite enjoyed being a presenter. Oh, well, never mind. I've got loads of money in the bank.
Yeah.
But if he's living day to day,
you can't do that.
He's ruined.
No.
And if you think about what the government takes from you, every time you spend money, they tax you. Every time you buy anything, every time you buy a house, they'll take their stamp duty. Every time you leave money to a relative, they'll take the money. Every time you sell anything like a house, they'll take the money. They literally have got their mitts into every single thing. And we speak about it all the time. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's the plan. And it's another reason why there's a huge attack on cash.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the reason is control, obviously, because, if you don't pay cash, you pay with a card or with a phone or with a chip in your bloody head or whatever. They know what you're buying, when you're buying it, and where you're buying it. So that's obviously a huge part of it, because then they can stop you buying it. Computer says, no, sorry, you've had too much meat this week or whatever. But another part of it as well is for the tax.
Yeah,
'Cause you pay cash. Well, that's cool. The government doesn't know about that. So you're going to pay me 100 quid cash in hand. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I survived when I was young. Cash in hand work.
Yeah.
That's how you do. You deliver some flowers to a florist or whatever. Here's 100 quid cash in hand. Cheers, mate. Nice one.
Not only that, but you're also paying a percentage of commission on every card transaction to a bank.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You missed a club, by the way. Nagoya Grampus, Japan.
Oh, Grampus 8. He went to Japan, didn't he?
There you go.
Yeah.
Damn. But it's very, very clear that savings are very important to people having the ability to make choices. You explained that really, really well. If someone said to you now, I'm going to give you £5,000 and it's got to last you a year to survive, most people are going to go, how am I going to survive on that? How am I going to afford rent? How am I going to afford da-da-da? How am I going to pay for food? If I gave you £5,000 in cash right now in one lump, that's the ability for you to do something. That's you could buy a car. You can go on a nice holiday. You go on various holidays. You can do lots of nice things with that lump. And that's essentially what savings are. You squirrel away 100 quid a month for 10 years. You've got a big lump there all of a sudden that you can use to, like I say, buy a property. Maybe quit your job to start your own business.
Well, that's the thing.
All those things.
Gives you the freedom to have a go at bettering yourself.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. That's why so many people don't. I'd love to write a novel, but when will I get time? I've got to work all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas, you got 50 grand in the bank. I'm going to survive for a couple of years while I write my novel. Give myself time to make it.
I know someone that did that. They had saved a load of money and they took 18 months off work and to write a novel. They'd always wanted to do it. Yeah. I don't think they ever did anything with it and whatever, but it's something they'd always wanted to do. They had enough money to be able to do that, and they did.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do that if you've got nothing.
You're born to work, pay bills, and then die.
Yeah. Okay, final story. This is one that really got me, to be fair, because obviously we're looking at these stories and they're all hugely important and significant in different ways. People might think, well, why do I care about a BBC presenter? Well, it's because it's bigger than Gary Lineker. It's about silencing people, and if they step out of line, in the end, they come for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're sat at home now going, well, I don't care, I support Israel. Yeah, but you don't align with the state on everything, because no one does.
They'll come for you.
So they'll come for you in the end. UK strawberry warning. It's not a headline I expected to read. UK strawberry warning as Tesco, M&S and Sainsbury's, as experts have never seen anything like it.
I don't know where this is going.
There's one line, right? Okay. Customers have been warned about an exceptionally large, giant bumper crop of strawberries. This year's harvest is producing unusually large strawberries. This is the bit. Raising concerns they may not fit in people's mouths. Do you know what I mean? Bite it then. Bite it then. But what made me laugh is that it might not fit in your mouth. Who eats a strawberry in a wanna? You hold the stalk and take a bite. Do you not take a bite of a strawberry? You do. You whack it in your gob, do you?
I don't really like strawberries, to be honest. I'm the last person to ask about this.
No, well, Kerry didn't like strawberries. Said they were furry. Didn't trust them.
They're weird.
But it's if I can fit a hamburger in my mouth, because no one says that. There's, like, experts are warning the latest hamburger released by insert chain brand now might not fit in people's mouths. No one's doing that. You just take a bite of it. This is in the news.
Jesus, it's a mental, isn't it? How is this a news story?
It's raised concerns. Who's raised that concern that the strawberry might not fit in your mouth? Because I want their life. To be honest,
if that's your biggest concern,
if that's the biggest concern to the point where they've been spoken to the media about it, they must have life must be pretty sweet. But there you go. So be warned, folks. If you're going to think about buying some strawberries, it's beautiful weather out. Might not fit in your mouth.
Jesus. I was going to say email us in if you have any concerns about that. We'll share it.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, we said a couple of weeks ago, when we covered a story about smart meters, we asked people to email in if they're in a similar position. We've had lots of emails in. Thank you to everyone that sent everything. I've not been able to apply to every single one because there's literally been hundreds, which is fantastic news. I'm working with somebody on the side to look at a legal basis that we can try and challenge this based on the fact that they're cutting off a human right, which they have no right to do. So we'll be all of you that have emailed in will be in touch in the coming weeks to try and see what we can do there. So thank you very much. We've not you're not ignoring you. Thank you.
Thank you. And also on the whilst we're making public announcements, obviously you posted some a few days ago on your social media about the money we've raised from the cycle. That obviously we're donating to those that have been injured by the compliance juice. What's the state of that at the minute? Because we're waiting for it, aren't we?
So we've requested it to be sent to us by Just Giving, which they have said will take 4 to 6 days. I did that on Thursday last week, so we should have that by the middle of the week.
Magic.
And then we can start sorting out what we're doing with it. We're going to be working with Fiona Rose Diamond, who many of you will know from the protest movement, who's done some amazing stuff with the vaccine injured, and she's going to help us with a couple of lawyers as well, who's been representing people who are not quite disabled enough to get any payout from the government, which I think you have to be about 65% disabled.
I think it's 67%.
How they're measuring
I think it's
that.
madly specific.
I think people would notice if you were 5% disabled in terms of the impact on your life, but the idea of being 66% and not getting it's mental.
No.
So we're going to be working with those guys and trying to get this out to as many people as possible, whether that be helping people with mobility around their houses, wheelchairs,
chairlift, whatever
chairlifts, ability for people to be able to try and function as much as they can in society. So, we're going to be sharing that. And as we've said many times, thank you to everyone who donated.
Amazing. It's about 12 grand, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is 12
Incredible.
grand.
Incredible. Thank you so much. And for us, I think, because there's so many people asking for money for various different things, and you've got all these charities and you hear these stories, these massive charities where the CEO's on 6-figure sums, all that sort of stuff. I think, Jay's the same as me in the sense that we want to make sure, without, standing posing with someone saying, look how wonderful we are, we also want you to know exactly who's being helped and how they're being helped. Because if you're donating your hard-earned money, then you should know exactly where it goes.
Yeah, it could just go into a big machine that no one ever actually sees the end of it. Whereas this way, you're going to see who it helps. You're going to see specifically how it's changed certain people's lives, which is what we did it for. It's what kept us going throughout the tough times in the cycle.
My backside still hasn't recovered. It generally hasn't. So, yes, it's about helping people. Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in with us this morning. Today is the first day that there is going to be a trending extra in the afternoon as well, isn't there, mate?
There is, yeah. You'd be sick of the sight of me by the end of it. So this afternoon, probably around about 3 o'clock, we're thinking, just because we do these stories in the morning, and then by the time we come in tomorrow morning, so much has gone off, you're going, well, actually, we could have a 2-hour trending. So it's like, well, let's just, cover stories in the afternoon as well. If things break, do you know what I mean? If nothing's going on, Although I want to know what's going on with these strawberries, to be fair, because if the raspberries start getting big, then we're in big trouble.
I know. I'm going to go to the supermarket. I'm going to go to Tesco now just to see what's happening, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you'll be back at 3 o'clock. And then through the rest of the week, I'll be in with you on 3 o'clock on Wednesday and Rich with 3 o'clock on Friday. So we'll start with Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you'll be getting 8 trendings from now on, 5 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. So we'll apologise in advance if you get sick of our faces.
Yeah.
But have a great day, everybody. And you'll see Gareth later on this afternoon.
Yep. And don't forget to head to shop.iconic.com and use the code TREND and you get 10% off the Iconic coffee. We'll see you later.
Cheers.